actually need to because it's streaming it on Facebook. Things work
Can
out
do it
well.
on the couch.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, big weird live phony faces. No kidding. They're not phony.
And we have some more people waiting. I'm going to keep letting people in. You talk to them while I let these other people in.
Okay. Hello, Lifewriters. I'm Tananarive Due, and this is my husband and collaborator, Steven Barnes. And most of you probably know that Lifewriting is a system that is not just to help us improve our writing, but to improve the life of the writer.
The same thing. It's you are the axe that, you are the instrument, and the idea being, Abraham Lincoln supposedly said that, hey, we're going to mute people. We're going to mute them all. That if you had, 2 hours to cut down a tree, he'd spend the first hour and 50 minutes sharpening his axe. So given that thought, it is important for you to spend time working with yourself, working with your emotions.
Yeah, if I could add,
Please.
we just for the first time ventured out of our hideaway last weekend. We got a beach condo pretty much literally on the sand. And it was pretty quiet. And I mean, we took pictures on the beach where it was completely deserted. It was like having a private beach. And even at its most crowded, there were not that many people there. So social distancing was not an issue. We were having a great time. But yet, as the weekend wore on, my back was getting tighter and tighter and tighter because I think my fight or flight was very confused.
Yes.
It's like, why aren't you at home? Why are you out in public?
Somebody's going to cough on you.
Why are you exposing yourself needlessly to see some sand? Those were the silent questions that were going on in my head. And I was like on Tylenol, my back was so sore. So there is a true and deep mind-body connection. And even though consciously I thought I was having a great time, unconsciously I was in a panic. I was full of anxiety and wondering if, for the next 2 weeks now, am I going to be checking my temperature? Yes. Actually, not the whole time, but I did check it twice a couple days ago. So yeah, be aware. It can be, I've had shoulder pain at the beginning of the pandemic. I had back pain. Some of you may get headaches, tension headaches.
I don't get anything that is localized.
Right.
What happens with me is it just, everything starts slowing down. It just it feels like I'm a low geared truck trying to pull a bunch of weight up a hill. If it's adding more projects, more stress, more of this, more of that, no individual things break down. So that means I'm pretty well balanced in that sense. But it can be that sense all the time. God, why am I tired?
Yeah,
I'm just more tired. Maybe, and here's the insidious thing. You really got to watch out for this. That voice in your head that says, you're just getting old. It's just like, that voice, what I call your death drive, that starts telling you, stop trying, go ahead, have that pie, have that ice cream.
That voice, you can listen to that one. No.
But if it's cake, I'm having a local bakery make us a custom lemon cake tomorrow. I'm going to pick that up tomorrow. I will invite you all over to try cake.
I will be wiping down as soon as it arrives. But then, so yeah, I'm feeling a little low energy today because yesterday I was super hyped up. This is a real actual thing. Can I transition to yesterday? This is a real actual thing our manager said to us yesterday. Well, just be sure you don't let your little consulting sideline get in the way of your writing time.
Yeah.
Real thing of our consulting sideline. Okay.
Basically,
first of all.
Go ahead.
No, you go on to say what
Well, the consulting thing came out like this. Both of us, teach and lecture and coach. And under ordinary circumstances, if a friend says, would you take a look at this script? Or you think, will you talk to me about this project? I'll do it for free.
Yeah.
I will. But when a studio says, would you talk to us about Project X?
Yeah.
Do we just call this Project X or can it's going to be up to you.
It matters. What we say what the project is.
Okay. Candyman.
All right. So okay. They wanted. Let me backtrack.
Please.
Ever since that time, Jordan Peele came to surprise my class at UCLA. We've had a really, really good relationship with Monkey Paw, and by extension, a really, really good relationship with Universal Publicity. Like Universal Publicity even set up one of his visits to my class with Vanity Fair there and the whole big thing as a part of the Oscar campaign for Get Out, real talk. So And for us, I came and I did a one-on-one interview with Jordan Peele, and I did a roundtable with Jordan Peele. So I've done a lot of work in publicity for Universal because I'm a fan, you know, and whatever.
Right.
I'm a big fan. I'll do anything for Jordan. I love what he's doing for all of
Yeah,
us.
he is. If you have not heard us make this comment specifically, Jordan is a genuine genius.
Yeah,
he really is the real thing, and he's also an absolute sweetheart.
And we've seen the pilot for Lovecraft Country too, and it's like, well, he's just lifting us all up. If anyone who writes horror right now, you are feeling the impact of Jordan Peele.
He is changing the game
right
by himself. So it's like, you know, I just want to say, I know that you guys, you know, go see his movies and stuff like this, but understand something. You're not just supporting his films. You're supporting someone who is turning around and supporting us.
Right.
You know,
I mean, we got our Twilight Zone 3 of that. So we have a great relationship. But when I heard from a young brother at Universal Publicity, he was like, hey, could you do a talk for our publicity team about the history of Candyman to help us prepare the marketing for the new Candyman? I was like, ooh, I would love to do that, but I think we're gonna need to get paid for that. You know, and I just sort of floated a test balloon. Yeah. And the amount we asked for was way too little because they said yes way too fast. So next time we'll be asking for more.
So we got they said yes way too fast, even though it was a lot of money.
For an hour.
And so
for an hour's work, it's kind of ridiculous.
Basically, some other people asked us to coach somebody. So we just increased that number by 50%.
Yeah.
And they still didn't blink. So we're gonna keep increasing it by 50% until they blink, and then we'll stay there for a while.
We know we're way too low. But beyond that, yesterday.
But it was a lot of money.
For an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it was the most I've ever been paid. Once before I'd gotten paid that much. When we increased it by 50%, that's the most I've ever gotten for an hour. I mean, the highest hourly rate I've ever had.
Yeah,
so it's like,
we don't really know. I mean, we this is new that people are looking and asking Black people advice.
But I think the thing to understand is that in essence, it's not any different from what I would do on a panel at a science fiction convention.
Right. Or what I do in my classroom. Like I'm going to use the same deck that I use in this presentation when I teach Candyman to my students at UCLA. It's the same concept. I mean, we're entertaining and we're visual and we know a lot about it and we have a lot of opinions about it. And we broke it down. Okay, we broke down the whole history of Candyman and the problematic aspects of
we looked at it in terms of the psychology of horror, the sociology of race in Candyman.
What happens when you change the character from white to Black?
Because the original story by Clive Barker did not deal with race, it dealt with class. What happens when you do that? The fact that they were playing with miscegenation as the understructure of fear that they then channeled so that people weren't admitting to themselves, I'm scared of what I'm seeing on the screen because he's Black. They're saying to themselves, they're saying to themselves, oh, it's because he's a ghost. That's why I'm scared. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And we watched Candyman 2 last night, and it's like, oh my gosh, it just really leaned into like Black person is jump scared.
Yeah.
It gets even worse.
And even though it has an excellent director, Bill Condon.
But it's still
Dreamgirls, right?
There are a lot of I think so. There are a lot of blind spots. So we broke it down, and we thought, you know, when they said their marketing team, I thought there might be 12 people on the call. There were 150 people on that call. I have no idea who all those people were.
And they've been raving about it. So if you don't think that this is going to lead to more jobs where we get paid absurd amounts of money, we finally asked our agents, like, how much should we be charging for this? And they said, well, X for this, they said X for a half day and 2X for a full day. And it's like, I'm saying, oh yeah.
Nice work if you can get it. And this is going around. I mean, I've also heard from other people who do workshops. I'm not going to be specific for writers. And they were approached by a studio and they're getting a nice, figure to do some consulting. So this is actually becoming a thing. Although I just thought it was so funny that our editors like, don't let your sideline get it. You're like, what sideline? We just started this. But this is the new reality. This is the new reality right now for a lot of creators. And some of you on this call have seen the impact of the popularity of Black horror in terms of setting up projects. And so we had a great time. And Win Rosenfeld, the president of Monkey Paw, was on the call.
Yes.
And so we got to say, he said nice things to us. We got to say nice things to him. It was really fun, actually. It was
but
buzzy,
in terms of energy,
yeah, it was
you know,
really
it's like, okay, so my ordinary energy is at this level, let's say, and it's there from the time I get out of bed pretty much till I go to bed at night. In order to do this, I had to raise that. So it's a little bit like a sprint, because, you know, it's a little bit like going on a first date with somebody that you really, really wanted to date for a long time.
Yeah.
You're going to be a little bit, you're going to sparkle a little bit.
Yeah,
like, hey.
We were more than just sparkling a little bit. We were like, wow.
Yeah, we kind of, when we talk to you guys, this is the way we usually are, plus 10%. We project a little bit
different, but
you know what we try to do is to have a conversation with you as if we're all sitting in the same place, and we're trying to be as honest with you as possible. And as these things start happening, and as we learn more, our task, you know, our commitment is to share as much as possible of what it is that we're doing, what works, what doesn't work. We're trying to leave a trail of breadcrumbs for you guys.
And I think it's fitting that we started this talk with the mind-body connection and the need for self-care.
You've got to take care of yourself.
So more yoga this week. I usually only do yoga once a week. I've done it twice this week.
Yeah, I want her to be doing it 3 times a week.
Yeah, he does yoga every day except Sunday.
Every day. Yoga is no longer optional for me. It is now obligatory.
Yeah.
If I don't do yoga every day, my body remembers that I've been on this planet for 7 decades.
So
I do not want my body remembering that I've been here for 7 decades. I want go to sleep, body. Go to sleep.
So
it's Cherie Renee Thomas just checked in.
Holy cow, royalty in the house.
Royalty in the house. Cherie Renee Thomas. We are not worthy. We are not worthy.
Editor of the groundbreaking Dark Matter anthology of Black speculative fiction that was the first of its kind. Now much more readily available than it was in recent years, because it's starting to did I mute us?
Yes, you muted us.
Sorry, I muted us. So anyway, yeah, because so we had to go to bed, get enough sleep before the presentation. We had to go to bed and get enough sleep after the presentation. I could feel my mind trying to be like, you know.
And I'd like to, if I could go into this a little bit, because one of the things I do when I wake up every morning, one of the things that I do is I have a wake up ritual from the time that I first kind of open my eyes and realize I'm awake in the morning. And one of the things I do is it's like, why am I getting out of bed? And it will have to do with what it is that I need, what my projects are, but more importantly than that, what my commitments are to people. There's somebody who needs my help today. So it's like I don't know what's going to be, and I will go to Facebook and I will look through Facebook until I find somebody who's in trouble, and I will let that spark my essay for the day. And I've been doing that for a long time.
I didn't know that. I'm learning.
I will look at dozens of different posts, and I find people who, you know, we're going into 5 months of isolation here, and there are people who are deeply depressed. I'm seeing, you know, suicidal ideation and depression, and what I wanted to say is that the core of much of this is a lack of self-love. That oppression and stress and depression will actually damage your sense of self. I remember when my daughter was just about 5 years old, I stood her in front of a mirror and I said, you know, I told her to say, you know, I like myself. And I love myself. Look at me. And she had a hard time doing it. She literally didn't have permission to just say that she loved herself in that way. But as I kept pushing her, as I kept insisting, I gave her permission to say that she loved herself. When she finally made that connection, she broke out laughing. I like myself. I love myself. And what I'm trying to say to you is that every day, you need to connect with your heart. You need to connect with your right to be here, your divine right to simply exist in this world.
And I think part of what's happening is that there are messages coming from the top down that we don't have a right to be here, that our lives are not valuable, not just racially.
Right.
I mean, but nobody. Your children's lives are not valuable. Send them to school.
Right.
Your lives are not valuable. No, we're not going to help you
as
out
artists,
with unemployment benefits.
Why don't you give your time away for free? You know, it's exposure. You know, as women, and as people of color, as a LGBT
society. I mean, I think we're all sort of feeling this sense of loss at the myth that we had kind of a parental figure looking over us.
Yeah.
Because now we do not very clearly, and to a degree many of us never have, right? But now it's just so much more obvious to so many more people that is not true, that we're in this on our own. And feeling worthy is tough when you're in isolation, when you can't see loved ones, when some of you are in grief and you haven't been able to go to physical funerals.
So there's two tests for this that I would suggest. If you can look in the mirror and say, I like myself, I love myself, and feel, without a hint of irony, you don't hear any voices in your head saying, oh, that's garbage, you shouldn't say. None of that. It's just the truth. You're not saying you're better than someone else. You're just saying that you love yourself. If there's anything other than a sense of, yes, I'm a child of God, I'm made of the same stuff as the stars, then you know that this is where you should work. And if you can visualize yourself as an infant, as you can visualize yourself holding yourself as an infant, what I call the ancient child technique, the elder part of you protecting and nurturing the youngest part of you. If you can see that and feel that, then you've got a pretty healthy internal connection. And if you can't, then you have an idea of how you should be meditating or journaling or doing affirmations or incantations or something to make that connection so that you will protect yourself. We're, as artists, you are more important than the books that you're writing. My son, my daughter, my wife are more important than anything I could possibly write. I'd never sacrifice them, your welfare, for words on a page. I can always put more words on a page later.
Right.
But when my son or my daughter or my wife need me, I need to be able to be there. And the same thing is true of yourself. You need to be there for you.
Yeah.
So we talk about self-care and we talk about creativity. We talk about these things because that's the core of what's going on. When it took me 20 years to get back on the horse and get another television episode. Mm. I had the technology in place to keep my heart alive for 20 years of rejection and pain. And it was very painful at times. And it would have been very easy to lose hope.
Yeah.
But I refused to let life beat me. Life, I wasn't going to beat myself. Life might beat you, but don't beat yourself.
Even last year, 2019, we had written the best scripts we'd ever written and couldn't sell either one of them.
That's right.
Right. And
so couldn't get any traction at all.
Yeah. So it's like, now one of them is in talks for a shopping agreement. The one we were going to do with Monkey Paw that we keep talking about, that didn't work out because of Universal. Ironically,
some people who are genuine movie makers, we've seen their film and it works just fine. They've done multiple things. They have their funding and they want to make one of our movies.
Yeah,
and there's a bunch of this happening right now. It's like I can't even count the number of different projects that are cooking right now. So that's another thing. How do you keep all of that straight so you don't get overwhelmed?
Let's go back to that because that's going to be a big part of what we talk about today, I think. But I want to start with sort of that heart connection first, because before you can get the energy to even think about how to organize your projects, and be very mindful and conscious and keep track of everything you're working on, you have to feel excited, right? We have a journal we fill out most mornings. I don't do it every morning, but one of the questions that I'm usually able to answer very quickly is, what do I have to feel excited about today?
Yes.
Very rarely does my pen hover where I'm like, I can't think of anything, because there's so much going on that there's almost always something to get excited about. Who needs my extra attention today? Who can I surprise with a gift today or a call today? This is a big one. And one of the things I have found, like when I'm feeling anxious, when I'm having the back pain, and pain, those of you who suffer pain know this better than I do, leaches energy, leaches joy. It just takes a lot to manage pain. So then you start to feel less excited about things, less motivated, less creative. And when I get in that space where I can feel not depressed, but sad, I think when I'm feeling pain, I'm much more likely to just feel sad. It's in that space of sadness I don't feel productive, and it is like day after day after day seems the same. What can I do to feel better about this repetitive life that we're all living right now? And the answer is in that journal. What can I do for someone? Like, you're
talking about, everybody knows if you're sick but your kid is sick, you will get out of bed to take care of your kid.
Right.
So we can do things for other people that we can't always do for ourselves.
So I talked to a friend I hadn't talked to in a long time, like since the beginning of the pandemic, just to check in with her. I have an aged aunt who had a stroke and who can no longer read. And I've been talking about how I was going to record excerpts from my new novel for her. Well, damn it, yesterday I ordered myself a cassette tape recorder because that's what she knows how to use. And I found me some cassettes online. And I'm going to start recording, I think, like the last chapters of my book so she can hear it. Just so
this woman
to do something for someone. And my dad and I are going to do a Q&A essay for the Milken Institute, like, which publishes essays. Someone reached out and said, do you want to have your dad write an essay? It's like, I'll do a Q&A with my dad. So that way I can ask him questions. He can ask me questions. And that makes me feel good.
You like on Zoom?
No, it'll be written.
Okay.
It just makes me feel good to like think of what I can do for somebody else if I'm not feeling great. And that's just some advice I want to pass along
now, one
to
thing,
you all.
In terms of feeling great, I'm going to put a thing in chat here. I want you to go to YouTube and look up Sonnen joint mobility. If I could only do one exercise and I only had about 5 minutes to do it in, it would be the joint mobility drills that a gentleman named Scott Sonnen has for free, a complete course for free on YouTube. It's not fitness, it's health. It's the health of your tissues, your muscles, your tendons and ligaments, your joints. And it takes you 3 minutes to warm your entire body up in the mornings. And, you hear people talk about throwing their backs out when they reach over to pick up a shirt. That's because you weren't in touch with your body. You hadn't warmed your body up. You didn't realize.
That was me he's talking about.
Well, I wasn't going to say that.
This was years ago. But again, tight back. It wasn't because I was picking up
Actually,
a shirt.
The truth is it was somebody else, but it wasn't a shirt. It was something else. Shirt. The two stories got conflated.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Wasn't trying to put your business in the street.
That's okay.
So let's see. Take a look at a question. There was somebody said that my writing had more urgency and I felt more creative when I was struggling financially. Now that I feel comfortable, I'm having a hard time feeling the same.
Isn't that interesting?
And well, first of all, congratulations on
feeling comfortable.
Feeling comfortable in these times. That is no small thing. So it could be that before you were writing out of fear, now you could conceivably write out of gratitude.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to find the powerful emotions that you feel and tap into those. Fear is one of them, but the other major one is love. My attitude is you spend the first 20 years, 25 years of your life operating out of fear in the sense of, I have to, get these grades. I have to get a job. I have to be able to keep a roof over my head. I have to get, reliable access to sex or whatever it is that you want, because it's that fear, the fear of lack. But after time, I think that it is mature to start saying, I want to be motivated by things that are pleasant, that take care of my needs automatically, but are doing things that I find, useful. So I might work a job that I don't like while I'm developing the skills to do something I do like. Maybe. So I can get up every morning and have something to look forward to. Go ahead.
Maybe, it was like writing was your escape hatch, or you felt like writing would be a financial escape hatch, which, believe me, is the long way around. That is not the most reliable escape hatch, the arts. But now that you're comfortable, as you said, it doesn't feel like you need to write to escape. It could very well just be that what you need to do is replace that feeling of like, oh my God, I have to write or I'm going to go crazy, with deadlines. Just bottom line. I have some revisions I'm supposed to be doing on my novel, and I have a lot of other stuff going on. We're having, meetings where you have to prepare and stuff. And so I don't work on that all the time, but I have an appointment on my calendar next Thursday with the beta reader. And that is going to encourage me to keep it in my mind and tinker on it, in advance of that meeting. So even if it's an artificial deadline of some kind, give yourself a deadline to write. And you've seen my page chart, or if you really want to get hardcore, you can draw a chart and keep track of how many pages you're writing a day if you really want to slap yourself.
You want to show them your page chart?
Sure. I don't want to show my shorts I'm wearing, but yes. I like my page chart.
Yeah. Oh, they're cute. Anyway.
So this is,
bring it over here.
This is a good example because we're working on a screenplay right now, a feature script. And Steve had taken first crack at the first draft, and I was coming behind with a polish and expansion. And, I don't know if you can read this, but it's like 0 pages Sunday, 2 pages Monday, 1 page. And then by the time 9 pages by, once it really got rolling. So it often starts slowly.
There's one part where you're on the outside of the project looking in, and then there's a part where you're on the inside of the project living it. You're just like, reporting what's happening in there. You're just writing down what people are saying.
You can barely keep up with it. And that's really the fun part when the script takes over. But in the beginning, it can feel like typing, and that's normal. Some writers, it always feels like typing. I really feel sorry for those
It's
writers.
just, it's still better work than, working at the 7-Eleven, and that's decent work. It's when you realize that a lot of, in my whole, the book that I wrote, Chop Wood, Carry Water, it's not that it gets easy to write. In fact, it should never be easy, because you should continue to be dealing with your emotions, with the things that you really care about. You don't want to do hack work where you're just floating across the surface. That's perfectly well, I know I can write this scene. I've done it 100 times before. Right. That's exactly the thing. You want to say, what can I do that I haven't done before? So in terms of the question, how do you get your excitement up? When people talk about not having motivation to do something, whether it's exercising or stopping smoking or anything else, I will usually ask them, what are your motivations for doing that? And they'll say something weak. Say, well, I know I probably should because of my health. And then if you say, well, what is it you like about doing this thing? They just light up. Well, it tastes, food tastes so great, and I'm hanging out with my friends, and there's always a lot of variety, and I can do anything I want. It's instant satisfaction. And you can actually see their energy is way up here when it comes to doing the negative thing. And it's just sort of like, well, I kind of know that I should, for the positive thing. Right. So one of the things you have to do as an adult is learn how to push your own buttons, is to learn what is it that inspires you? What is it that turns you on? So I will associate everything in my life, everything that I do in my life. And there are only 3 things I spend any time doing, really: writing and things connected to that, martial arts and things connected to that, and my relationship with my family and friends. So each of those things benefits the other 2. It's all connected, that everything in my life is connected to everything else in my life. So motivation is never a problem. It's more a matter of hunger. I want to be this person. I want to share this, and I want to make this contribution to the world. So if you ask yourself, what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing for your family? What are you doing for your community? What is your gift to the world? And when you can work it out so that the answer to those things is the things that you're doing. I'm exercising to keep my energy up so I can be a good father to my son, a good husband to my wife.
Yeah,
So
I walk every morning, not just because I need to exercise, but because I need to get out of this house.
Right.
I need to be away from the house, and I need to do my affirmations and get myself jazzed up for the day.
So why do you write? Let's take a look at that. Multiple motivations for writing.
Well, right now it's still just fun. We are blessedly not on any deadlines. Not yet. We know we know that right around the corner there's a whole bunch of deadlines.
Oh my God.
But now,
it's coming.
Right now we're in limbo for a bunch of stuff. So we're just working on the spec script, and we're doing it at our own pace. And I'm working on my novel, and I'm doing that at my own pace. So it really, to me, why do I write? Honestly, it's a place my spirit settles into to play. And when I don't have that, when I'm not working on something that I really care about in a world that feels rich and alive, and characters that feel rich and alive, I feel like I don't have a place to live.
So, see, she just given you the essence of that. If she were to break that down, why does she love it? Why does she feel that way? You could go with her childhood associations. If you've read her work, you know that her stuff comes from a place of passion. It comes from a place of community. It comes from a place of family history. It comes from a place of self-expression. So everything she is, and is also, there's business involved. We make money doing this. We support our family. We keep a roof over our heads.
More and more, that is becoming one of the reasons. Writing for money. What? Because screenwriting is so hard to break into.
Okay.
But when you can break into it and people want you to write, the money just pays way better.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, right. So
you have to, the reason why does it make so much more money, than not? Well, first of all, it's harder to get there.
Yeah.
There are fewer working writers in, Hollywood is one of the very few places on the planet where people can actually get paid for writing, and make a monthly salary, get a weekly
health
paycheck.
Insurance. They're the only writers with health insurance.
Yeah, so it's writers from all over the world want to be here. So the competition is off the charts. It's extraordinarily technical. I mean, you really have to understand what you're doing in terms of using visual images to create a visual poetry on the page. And Tananarive is getting better and better and better at that all the time.
And there's a social aspect, which is
huge
collaborating, meetings, how you comport yourself, how do you generate excitement with someone who's on the other side of the screen.
Oh, the other side of the table. You know, the person, you know, the people who have the paychecks, they might want to know, can we trust you with $1 million of our money? You know, or can we trust you with $10 million, $20 million, $50 million of our money? Can we work with you for a year and you're not going to go crazy?
Yeah, not to be an a-hole and not to miss all the deadlines. And so I saw a showrunner on Twitter say that they would much rather work with a writer where they have to go and kind of write behind them than an a-hole who's a great writer, because that kind of person sours a room and sours the process. And it's like, there's a whole lot to it. So,
okay, we have a question here, not necessarily rewriting, but do you start over with a new draft or cut apart a paper copy and slap it back together with tape and a new one? It's the question of rewriting and restructuring. So why don't you talk a little bit about your process once you've got a first draft?
Yeah, our processes are very different. I will try to write up to the level of polish I think I want as I go. I mean, I might be in flow. Let's say I write 5 pages. In a day. So that's total flow. And for the most part, I won't be doing any editing. But before I go another page farther, I will go back the next day to what I wrote the day before, polish, trim out stuff that's repetitive, and try to make it look as pretty and shiny and polished as I think it's going to be, which is why now at the end of the process, writing a novel, my agent does have some notes. But for the most part, I turn in really, really polished drafts because I polish as I go. Right. I don't go to chapter 2 until I feel like chapter 1 is exactly where I want it. That's not always true, but that's how I felt when I went to chapter 2. And then I do that process of going back to the beginning over and over and over. That's what, again, that's my process.
That's her process. So for me, I pay elves and leprechauns to come in and do my work. You know, I burned out a long time ago. No, what I do is I actually have my standard process is to write the first draft as a script using a piece of software called Final Draft. Then that allows me to write a whole book in a month.
Actually, we do writer-duet.
Yes, we use writer-duet a lot.
Yeah.
That allows me to write an entire book's worth of material in a month or two, which allows me to test all of the plot structures, the character relationships, the dialogue. So I have plot and I have dialogue and characterization. What I don't have is the poetics of the interstitial language. You know, I'm not worried about that. I'm just trying to see, does the structure work? Does the story flow?
Right.
Can I feel the momentum from one sequence to the next? Do the arcs of emotion build on each other so that I can feel the emotions that I want to feel in this piece? If it works, then I take that and I transfer it into prose. Okay. Then and I've done that with short stories too. But by the time I've gone through those things, the first prose version usually just has to be tweaked. I just have to polish it. And I can polish it by reading it aloud, by printing it out and reading it on paper, making corrections on paper, and then putting the corrections into the computer, and then reading over it again, making the corrections again, then printing it out again, and going through that process. But during the process of development, I will use a dozen different techniques to get the creativity out. I will pose questions to myself before I go to sleep, trusting my unconscious mind to come up with the answer by the time I wake up. I will use 3x5 cards, Post-it notes. I've got a double-sided whiteboard in my office. I've got huge, easel pads that I use. I will use outlining programs. I will do anything to just tease out the creativity, because every time you look at a story from a different perspective, it suggests different things. To a certain degree, I've been doing this so long right now that my unconscious mind understands the arc of the story. So that just, if you understand geometry, then you know that if somebody gives you 3 points on a circle, you can draw the rest of the circle. Okay. And so if I know just a couple different things about my story, I can intuit a lot of other things that have to be true. If I could start with a character, I understand that I want to empty this character out. What kind of challenge would empty this character out? If I start with a situation, then I can ask, well, who would be the perfect character through whose eyes to view this situation? So whether it's character, theme, a piece of a scene or whatever, the circle is suggested. I will then rough out that circle and I will race to the end because I want to find out what happens or whether or not it's going to work the way I think it's going to work. I often have the end of a story in my mind before I begin to write it. But that the rewriting process is usually no more than continuing to ask questions, how does this language work? Are these characters doing what they would really do? Sometimes the characters come to life and begin to tell me that they would do different things than I thought they would do, and I have to make those adjustments.
Yeah, this is an interesting lesson just from the screenplay we're working on. So we started batting this idea back and forth. It's kind of taking another shot at one of the first scripts, maybe the first script we ever wrote together years ago when we first got married. And
called The Pack.
Right, and we never really got anywhere with it, and then we lost interest in it, and we were doing other things, and we wanted, in the spirit of sort of getting back in touch with the younger writers we were, let's take another shot at it. So we reconceived it. We came up with the characters, the situation. This is a bunch of college students and their professor, and they go on a trip. So we mapped out a good, what would you call it, like 10-page treatment?
Sure.
All right, so based on that 10 to 15 page treatment, Steve went in and did the first draft where he's basically just expanding out the treatment. So if there's dialogue, he's putting in dialogue that for the most part, he's not expecting to be the final dialogue. It's just like, this is a vision of what the scene could look like. Let me get this all out.
Yeah.
And unpack it. So basically unrolling it. So
yeah, I want to get it out of my head and onto the page, just like in front of my eyes instead of behind my eyes.
I think that was about 60 pages by the time you were done.
Okay.
So when I came behind him, I looked at the scenes as they stood. If I liked the way it looked, I would expand upon it, add more detail, add more visual symbols, tweak the dialogue. If I wanted to go in a slightly different direction, like I might try to surprise him, not too much, a couple cases.
It happens.
But But
it's always interesting to see what she's going to do.
Right.
And in some cases, it'll be like, no, it's got to be this way. Whoever started the project lays down the basic foundation, has the kill switch. However, there are times when she'll be very passionate about something that she wants in there. And I'll start saying, well, is there some way I can give her that win? Is there some way that I can do this so that I keep what I want or see what it is that she's doing as an upgrade to what I want? And sometimes it does happen.
It's just very difficult to sort of see all of the angles of a story and all of the decisions a character might or might not make from up here when you're working at the treatment stage. There's just only so much you can do. So when you get down in the dirt, you realize your character was supposed to do X, but now that we're here, it feels more like the character would do Y.
Right.
Or, why don't we reveal this later? Because it doesn't really add anything that they know about this early. So let's save this reveal for later, or let's do this and let's do that.
Yeah, why does it happen here? Why does it happen now? Now, Tananarive tends to, that process that she talked about where she perfects a scene before she moves on to the next scene, I think that her unconscious does the same thing with her writing, because she will write often feeling as if she is reporting an incident that actually happened. So that if I want to try to change something, once it's written, we can get into some real knockdown arguments.
Not lately. We really haven't lately.
We've gotten better.
I think we've gotten a lot better lately. And we're becoming better and better collaborators, after 22 years. But right now we're the best we've ever been. You know, we've had some really, really solid experiences, and that's only improving because frankly, we need to be the best we can be because we've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. So let's say we could easily end up writing on 4 different projects at the same time, like a couple of movies, a couple of television
spaced
series.
Out,
not necessarily spaced out. This stuff could hit us all at the same time. And that's the whole thing. When you were working on all these contracts, you had better get ready for the idea that some of these contracts are going to hit us at the same time. So if that happens, then you have to ask the question, well, how do you do it? And you better ask that question ahead of time. So our game in terms of organization has to go up. And one of the things that's important is that it may be best to work on one project at a time in terms of how deep you can go, but that's not always available. So how do you juggle that many projects? I say that you do it the same way that a chess master can play a dozen games of chess at one time. It isn't that he's really remembering all those games. It's that he can look at the board and see the position and he knows what he needs to do next. Okay. So it's like I may forget about what's going on in a story, but then when I read the story, that sense of, oh, this is the geometry of story. This is what is happening. Oh, this needs to happen next. And so I can write that scene. We're going to have to move from project to project. Possibly.
Because there's a lot of hurry up and wait in Hollywood, you know, so yeah.
I'm figuring that what I'm going to need to do in order to survive this, if we get crashed by 3, 4, 5 projects at a time, is I'm going to need to be writing 5 pages a day of my Hollywood material. So it's like, and I can do that. I can write 5 pages of script in about an hour. It won't be polished, but if I know where I'm going and I know what's supposed to be happening there, and we've got the outline together, then all I have to do is break out some dialogue, break out some descriptions, you know, and I like the program has the page counter down at the bottom, so I can keep looking at that. And so it's a stress. It's a stretch, but I know I can do it. It's going to have to be worked with later on. But I've got Tananarive batting cleanup. If I'm taking lead, she bats cleanup. If she takes the lead, I bat cleanup. So, but then it's like, okay, that's the done by one. It's like the basic work I need to do for the day needs to be out of the way by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It can be done by 1 or through by 2 or free by 3, you know, out the door by 4, whatever you want to say. But it's generally done by 1 is what I'm going to aim at. And then in the afternoon, if I want to do a little bit more writing for fun, I can do some fun writing. So the idea is that I've got a book that I'm working on with my mentor and buddy, Larry Niven, and then we're going to have all this television and film stuff to do. So if I can do 5 pages before noon and then take a break, maybe even a nap, and then come back and do 2 pages on a book of something that I'm just enjoying doing, where I'm just doing it to play with my buddy, that's 7 pages a day. It does feel like a lot. So today I started opening up that space again. So I did 3 pages of script today, 3.5 pages today, and I'll do 4 pages tomorrow. You know, well, I'll do 2 pages of book tomorrow.
I'm sorry, did Ernest Dickerson just walk into our Zoom?
Did you see that? Is that who was that? Did that happen?
All right. Well, listen, I was just calling your name. The other in an email.
Ernest Dickerson.
Hey.
Ernest Dickerson. Ernest Dickerson. Ernest
Legend
Dickerson.
in the house. Legend in the house.
We are not worthy. We are not worthy.
So absolutely. And for those of you who are not necessarily juggling a lot of different writing projects, but just trying to figure out how to juggle writing, period, this can also work for you in terms of, you know, in screenwriting, one of the first things you learn is you have got to outline. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear it.
Especially if you're collaborating.
And some people are not good at it, but it's a really, really helpful tool when you have to walk away and come back. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to reacquaint yourself with the project from
You're going to have to.
Is Ernest Dickerson?
Yes, Ernest Dickerson here. Ernest, are you here?
You're unmuted. So
you're unmuted. I heard your voice. So speak to us for a moment. The famed director, Ernest Dickerson, is here. Would you say something to us?
I'm glad to see everybody looking great, looking good and healthy and safe.
Yes,
safe.
Great. You know, and yeah, writing with a collaborator. My wife and I have been collaborating on a script that I'm doing a rewrite on now. So
look at this.
Well, I would love to hear. Would you share with us? This is totally unexpected, and it's a gift. Would you talk to us a little bit about your process? Would you be that kind?
Yeah. I don't even know if I have a process. I mean, the thing.
Unconscious competence.
The thing is, I just I'm not a writer, but you know, there's some stories that I want to see and hopefully get made, and you know, I have stories that I want to tell, so I started writing. I mean, that's how I started Juice years ago.
Yes.
And that's what I've been doing for the past several years. I kind of sit down. I use right here. Yellow legal
pads.
Yellow legal pad, and I have to have this kind of a pen. I got to have a Pentel black ink, ink pen, ballpoint pen, and sometimes I'll outline, but a lot of times I sit down and just start writing. I spend a lot of time thinking about it before I finally do, and I think that's why I never considered myself a successful writer, because it takes me a long time. I mean, I'll do 10 pages in one day, and then I won't get anything else done for about another week or so.
You're too busy directing a bunch of stuff, right?
Not now. Not now.
Not now, right? But usually.
But yeah, a lot of times I would get writing done on fumes, after I'd spent full day on set and come home and try and get some stuff out. But, it's always been marinating in my head. I think about it a lot before I put it down on paper. And, even sometimes when I'm on set, even when I'm dealing with something else, on the back burner, I still might have my script in my head, and I'll maybe jot a reminder down to myself, so I don't forget it later. But I've never gotten into the thing, I know a lot of writers, they, put the points of the story out on index cards and put them up and stuff like that. I never got into that. I just sit down and just start going at it.
I'm going to be honest. I consider directing to be a creative level above writing on average. That the average director, I think, has a larger skill set than the average writer. It's not that there are writers who are fantastic, but I kind of suspect that you have a very orderly mind. If you can organize in your mind all the things that are happening on the set and all the logistics and everything like this, I'm not surprised that you don't need those notes when you're just working on a legal pad. And that has to be like playing jacks for you. It has to be like, that's fun for you in comparison to juggling egos and budgets and all that stuff. It's pure storytelling, just you and the story, as opposed to all the things, all the hurdles you have to jump to make a film or work in television.
But you can't direct anything if you don't have a good script.
Yes.
So the script is where it all starts.
Yes.
When I get a script, then I read it the first time to see if there's something I can do with it. Then I read it the second time to really start visualizing it, and then eventually I do my my process of breaking it down and breaking it into images and moments and beats and stuff. But it has to be there on the page. It's got to be there. It's got to be there on the page first. I think my problem as a writer is that I write as a director. So I think sometimes I have I write stuff how I would direct it. So I think sometimes it gets a little bit more wordy than it needs to be.
Failed, yeah.
And usually by in a second draft, I go through it and I find myself eliminating a lot of stuff, just editing it. Because sometimes I find myself, I'll be saying the same thing twice, because maybe I'll say something that I won't get a chance to do any more writing for like several days, and I'll come back and I'll go back to it, and I don't really realize that until I go back into the script a second and a third time. So my wife and I are writing, I'm doing a rewrite on a script now, and it's gone through several different iterations, and
what's the title, if I might ask? No Face.
No Face. And is this a rewrite based on notes from an external entity, or just from what you all want it to be?
Well, my wife had her notes, and then there was a company that might possibly help us get it into a production, and they had some notes.
That's fabulous.
So, we'll see. We'll see. Here's my wife now.
Hi there. Hi.
We were just talking about collaborating, and there you are.
Yeah, and we're talking about process. It's so wonderful to see you. We have a bunch of people on here, and more people on Facebook and YouTube we're just talking writing. It's just a bunch of writers talking. Trust me, everything is very, very relaxed. And your husband was kind enough to share a little bit about his how he sees writing. Would you share us, give us 30 seconds or a minute of just talking about how you see story?
Or what it's like collaborating.
Yes,
well,
anything.
now that one I can answer like
Yes, please.
That's the only time we bump heads.
Okay.
It's the only time we have arguments or heavy discussions.
Yeah,
not
passionate discussion. That's the only time. and to me, he's more experienced and established and who writes more. But me, I'm more like the editor, get my notes. But now I'm starting to, we're starting to get our own rhythm of writing, and
Beautiful.
It's always intimidating until I start.
Yes.
Always, I really feel like, oh my God. And I'll do everything. I'll clean the house. I'll start a garden.
Yeah.
Everything to it. But once
Clean the neighbor's cat's toenails.
Sometimes there's nothing scarier.
It's like, I've been meaning to put that balcony up there. But then once I sit in, I can't wait to get back to it unless I leave for too long.
Right.
So.
Well, great. Well, good for you.
That is wonderful.
So
it's
exciting.
And it's so nice to see your faces.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. We, when was it? At the Cinematheque.
Yes.
That's time we saw each other, yeah.
How long ago was
That was the
Horror Noir.
the horror noir.
Yeah.
Which is a lovely piece.
Yeah, it came out great.
Yes, I'm so proud and thankful and appreciative of you, because that's something that we all need to have.
Yes.
And, thank you.
And it's still playing on Netflix.
Yeah,
it had a real resurgence during the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of people in Hollywood are discovering Black people, and horror is no exception. So,
and it's leading to other things.
Yeah.
So we may want to speak to you more privately at another time.
Yeah, but we're not.
Of course, we're here, and it's so great that you did it, because now we have a point of reference. We can stand and say, "Oh yeah, we've been doing this. It's just new to you."
Yes,
right.
There's lineage there.
Yeah.
Well, I actually think that what we're experiencing right now in America is a collapse of a waveform. In other words, it takes energy to keep a lie afloat. The truth is just there. There's a lie about what we are as a people. That lie was necessary in order to justify the institution of slavery and other oppressions. So America is starting to understand that lie after 400 years is finally starting to break down. They realize, well, maybe they're just people like us. And if they're just people like us, then what are they, and how do they feel, and how do they think? That is an opening. I mean, I feel sorry for my ancestors who suffered, the lie, and for myself earlier in my life. And I know you experienced that in your career, Ernest.
Yes.
But right now, there are times when I think that we are the hope and the dream of the slave. This is the moment.
And this world.
Yes.
They just don't want to admit it.
Right.
This is a fantastic moment. So for those of us who have been able to process our pain so that it didn't turn into hate and didn't sour us, who can still deal with the world with love and enthusiasm and energy and still have that, that Mickey Rooney, let's put on a show, Judy, attitude. I think the world is open for us. That the possibilities are there, and I am ready.
That's right, because we are resilient. And
yes.
Endurance.
We
always are like hopeful, because that's how we've survived.
Yes.
And that's how we're going to flourish.
And if you tell stories that come from your heart, then you are in essence teaching other people how to survive. You're saying, this is how I kept my heart alive. This is how you find love. This is how you stay healthy. This is how you keep hope alive. And we have so much to offer. And if we can do it in a way where we're getting paid, that's
the next hurdle.
Yeah,
that's the next hurdle.
That's the big one.
That's just so great. It's such an unexpected pleasure.
Yeah, to see you.
To see you.
Wow, it's a lot of people. Now I'm nervous. Okay. Bye.
Well,
please. Thank you very, very much.
And for sharing another story.
And we will talk more privately later.
Another collaborative couple.
Okay.
Yes. Black love. Black excellence.
So, yes, absolutely.
Doesn't get better than that. This is totally unplanned, totally spontaneous. And I hope you don't mind us focusing on you right now, Ernest, because you didn't sign up for this.
You're just here to listen to writing.
Yeah, you were just here to hang out. Is it okay that we?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's really interesting is because there is so much strife and fear and anxiety during this time. As you know, horror is having a real moment. you know. So I don't know if the project you're working on is horror, but you've done a lot of horror, and just curious about what you think the state of horror and Black horror is now, even compared to a year ago when we did horror noir.
Well, I think horror is finally getting the respect that it deserves, because you know, it was always considered like a bastard genre.
Yes.
It was not considered true literature or even valid cinema for a long time, even though, you know, some of our greatest films ever made and some of the greatest books ever written, you know, have been in the fantastic genre, in the horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you know, I think hopefully now, you know, more is coming up. I'm really anxious to see Lovecraft Country.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen it? Have you seen the first episode?
No, not yet.
We have.
Oh, you have? I
Yeah.
read the book. Actually, I read the book and I tried to get it, but it was already gone.
Oh, you tried to get it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
It was already gone. But you know, and you know, and the stuff that David Laval has been dealing with in terms of coming, you know, because I grew up reading H.P. Lovecraft, and the racism always bothered me, but you know, he always did some of the most amazing stories, and I'm glad to see that now people are turning that around, the racism around and dealing with it in different ways.
Cosmic horror, and it's very clear that this was a very troubled man psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
who talked about outsiders, you know, beings from different planes of existence intruding into ours, and his racism, his fear, his xenophobia, his fear of the unknown, his fear of the other. It reeks. The pages drip with it. It's a savage, dark, toxic poetry that is really kind of intoxicating if you don't read too much of it at one time. So I love what Jordan Peele's people are doing in terms of reinterpreting, owning it. We're taking it back for the 21st century. And this is, it's kind of amazing to see what can be done if you're sufficiently creative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, twisting it around. I thought his book, The Ballad of Black Tom, was great. Just taking the
right.
horror of Red Hook and doing it from the other side, you know, which was like so cool. So.
And that's in development at AMC, so fingers crossed, you know, more. But yeah, I've been telling creators for a while now, this is the best time ever to be a marginalized genre creator, especially, and probably that's true for all marginalized creators. It's just that there's so much more interest, and I think some of it is genuine and some of it is just related to the fact that we've been so starved for these images that we will pay to see it, and we will support it, and we will see it with friends, and we will see it more than once. So
I mean,
attention.
We did a talk to Universal about the original Candyman, and there are ways in which it is quite problematic, but man, it was great to see Tony Todd, you know, back in the day in 1992. It was just wonderful. So, you know, we can't say anything about the new Candyman, except that we can expect brilliance. And you know, if you expect brilliance, you're not going to be disappointed.
Well, it's very similar to Lovecraft Country, you know, in terms of using a black lens instead of a white lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's.
I think we can say that.
Yeah,
we did say to them that the original Candyman was black torture porn for white people. You know, unless I think it would be reasonable to say that ain't the case.
No,
that is not the
Let's
case.
just say they know exactly what they're doing.
Yes, and they knew how to do it
and why they're doing it. So this is all.
You're gonna like it.
This is all just great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Absolutely.
We will definitely have to sidebar at a certain point just to catch up. But thank you so much for popping in. This is just part of a regular series of videos that we do.
Every week, we just kind of get together and talk about what's going on and how we're dealing with it. And you know, when people like you drop in, we try to you know, get you to share with us so that so that people have a sense of what what kind of creative conversations do people like us have. You know, we have to earn your way into these circles in the real world, but the virtual world can enable us to have conversations like this and share the wealth.
Right.
I'm glad to see so many people.
Yeah, there were a lot of folks here.
Yeah, there are more than that, and it will exist out on YouTube. It will get a lot of hits. So is there anything, we're going to close up here very, 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 very soon. Is there any last word that you'd like to leave with us for us or for young creative people out there or whatever? What could you say for us?
I mean, now is the perfect time to be writing, because, we can't do anything else.
True.
I've been staying at home. The only traveling I did was to drive all the way out to the desert to try and shoot the comet, went out there with my sons in the middle of the, way out, getting away from light pollution. But that was the only thing that we were able to do. And seeing a lot of interesting genre stuff on Netflix,
yes,
and Shudder,
yes,
and everything. I've seen some really good, inspiring films. Really interesting Irish horror film called A Dark Song.
Oh, hello, writing that down.
Dark Song.
Okay.
Song. Yeah, it's really, really good. A great series, a German series called Ares, A-R-E-S.
That's on Netflix?
I'm sorry, it's Dutch. A Dutch horror series called Ares, which gets into the Black experience in some very interesting and unexpected ways.
Dutch, you said?
Dutch.
And it delivers like crazy. It's on, I think it's on Netflix, but A-R-E-S.
A-R-E-S.
It's Dutch with subtitles.
Fantastic.
Then there's the great German series, Dark.
Yeah, I've heard about that one.
Yeah, that's really good. Selena saw Dark.
Okay.
Selena Cochran saw Dark. Okay.
Okay. Cherie Renee Thomas saw Dark.
Well,
Cherie Renee Thomas, meet Ernest Dickerson. Ernest Dickerson, meet Cherie Renee Thomas.
Yes. Wonderful people here.
In the house.
These are all good people, man.
Well, check out Ares. There's a young sister in there who has the lead, and she's really, really interesting. Really
all right.
I'm looking at the end.
We're going to do that. We might watch the first episode of that tonight.
Hey. Okay,
so listen,
Ernest,
we only do this for an hour, so we don't want to scare you.
Okay.
We'd love to have you come back whenever you want to. We won't impose on you.
Next time we won't.
That's right. Unless you have something to say, in which case we will yield the floor to the great Ernest Dickerson. Listen, Ernest,
I'm sorry I came in late. The time slipped by me. I was in the middle of some other stuff.
It's okay. It's okay. This is just beautiful. The idea is to build community.
Right
here in a time when that is so desperate. We're so desperate for touch, and we can at the very least see each other's faces and hear each other's voices. True. And say hi. And we're so proud of you, and we're so happy to see you.
Hey, I'm proud of you guys too. So glad you're here.
Thank you. Listen, guys, everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks everybody for attending. We will see you again next week or the week after that. We try to usually it's on Wednesday. But we had to move it around because we did an intense thing with Universal yesterday, and I just didn't want to wear out my good lady wife. Thank you, all of you. Please stay safe. We love you straight from our hearts.
Safe and healthy.
And right on, everybody.
Right on. Take care, guys.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.